Welcome to Northport Newsbreak. Each episode, we'll be going in depth on a hot topic in the city of Northport. We know you're busy, so we're keeping it brief and packed with information straight from the experts. Listen up, learn, and enjoy. And now, here's your Newsbreak.
Hello, I'm Vinnie Mascarenas with the city's Economic Development Division, and today I'm joined by Mr. Rob Harris with over 25 years of experience in the manufacturing industry, specifically around education, training, workforce development, and making key connections for manufacturers in their surrounding communities. Rob brings a unique and valuable depth of knowledge through his experience, and we're excited to have him in the studio today to discuss manufacturing and workforce development in our region and getting a bead on how manufacturing has an impact on the changing face of Northport. Welcome, Rob Harris.
Well, thank you, Vinny. I appreciate that.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do?
I can. So as you mentioned, I'm the executive director of two regional manufacturing associations, SAMA and CIRMA. So I cover Manatee County all the way down to Collier and then inland, including Glades and Hendry. It's my goal to be a matchmaker for manufacturers, to provide resources, networking opportunities, play the advocacy role in helping the smaller manufacturers have a voice at the local level and in Tallahassee. But the end result is to try to get the manufacturing industry as a whole to expand and individual manufacturers to grow.
That sounds like you've got a lot on your plate. So when it comes to manufacturers who are looking to grow in this region, what are some of the ways that you help them out? How do you advise them? How do you guide them?
So there's a couple of hot topics right now. Obviously, labor force is one, and then supply chain is another. So we work with all sorts of partners, including CareerSource, staffing agencies, and whatnot, to help bring additional labor to the manufacturers. Mm-hmm. But probably more important is upskilling of existing labor, the incumbent workers. With the current labor situation, low unemployment, the availability of skilled workers is not great right now. Mm-hmm. So the tact is to take the more entry-level worker and upskill them so that they become the worker that they're really looking for. Advanced manufacturing is, the other hot topic of discussion, and that is more in the automation and robotic realm, where you can take the mundane tasks that have been typically lower wage jobs and automate and get robotic arms. And it's just changing the dynamic of the type of person that they're looking for. So instead of hands-on assembly or that type of work, now it's more controlling the iPad, controlling the iPhone that is controlling the automation.
Yeah, that's very interesting. When we had David Ferguson on in our last episode, we touched a little bit upon how manufacturing and entering that as a career choice is becoming more and more a very lucrative and smart move. Are they preferring folks out of college? Do they want to start recruiting in high school? When should people start thinking about a career in manufacturing and how to pursue it with seriousness?
5th grade.
Wow.
That's the serious answer. And that's the main focus of our workforce development committees that we have in both associations. It's getting grade school students excited about a career in manufacturing. And it really does start at the younger age. If you're talking to seniors, I'm not going to say it's too late, but they're typically already on their path. We are trying to work with the schools and bring the manufacturers to them to get that relationship between educators and industry and really get them excited about a career and what's out there. One of my colleagues, has made the comment that Florida's greatest export is its people. And why is that? We do a really good job trying to get our superstar students into 4-year universities, and they graduate and they leave. The other pathways have nothing to do with 4-year university. It could be technical colleges. It could be right out of high school. So we work with different organizations to try to get automation, robotics into the classrooms at a really young age. So think about this. if you're a sixth grader starting out in a robotics certificate program,
Yeah.
and you go all the way through middle school and high school, you have 7 years experience that you can enter the workforce at age 18. What manufacturer would not want to hire them? So where we're trying to get that focus is that they're teaching the right things.
Yeah.
Right? You
Yeah.
got to have the right equipment, the right curriculum. So we want to make sure that if we get them on the right page, that the opportunities are there for the students.
Yeah. Wow, that's so forward thinking. I noticed that you guys also are holding some workshops and providing resources to make the connection for manufacturers with that workforce. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, correct. So we have one coming up this month where we're talking about the talent pool of disabled people.
Oh, yeah.
We have 2 seminars coming up, one in Sarasota and one in Fort Myers. And the goal there is it's an untapped market. And most employers either don't know how to tap that market. Some of them have a fear of tapping that market. And we want to squash those fears and make it known on, hey, this is a really good opportunity for me to bring in dedicated people. They're hardworking.
Yeah.
And disabilities, they could be forward facing, but they could also be hidden. Yeah. Let's not rule them out of the workplace. No doubt there might be certain disabilities that are not a good fit for certain job opportunities, but in most cases there are. And talking about reasonable accommodations, et cetera. So that's one avenue that we take. The other avenue that we take has to do with training.
Mm-hmm.
Training the labor force. We have open enrollment type trainings where employees, especially the smaller ones, can send just 1 or 2 employees to an open enrollment so they don't have to take on the full burden of the trainer's expense.
Yeah.
And then we also do consulting work. We, again, are matchmakers, so we bring in proper resources and then help with those training type opportunities to help upskill the labor. And we work closely with the technical colleges when it comes to that as well. So yeah, there's just lots of avenues, and it's just a matter of making the manufacturers know that these avenues exist and that even that we exist.
Yeah.
Really, if you think about the total amount of manufacturers in the 2 regions that I represent, there's nearly 2,000 that have a NAICS code with a manufacturing NAICS code. We're just touching the surface.
Yeah. Talking about workforce and making those connections makes me definitely want to bring up a little thing called Hurricane Ian that it really impacted business stability in our region. It caused our workforce to become displaced, which has exacerbated workforce housing issues, which the city here is facing and our partners in other regions are facing. In your opinion, how can manufacturers overcome this issue and continue to rebuild and recover and be resilient in this sort of an environment?
So I'm not going to say that those 2 issues are totally separate, because there's no doubt they overlap. But with Hurricane Ian, whether you're talking about buildings that were damaged or destroyed, I think from a manufacturer's standpoint, none of them are really out on the beach where the hardest devastation was.
Yeah.
So from a facility standpoint, they're pretty well up and running.
Yeah. In
most cases, internet connectivity has been restored, so they're functional. Where they're really being hurt is in the labor. You have people that have lost their homes or severely damaged homes. You have people that can't go to work because their kids can't go to daycare because the daycare was destroyed.
Yeah.
So it is this whole type of chain of events that really did affect the labor force and the output of the manufacturers. The affordable housing, you're right. When you have houses that were destroyed and now you're trying to figure out where you're going to live, especially if you lived in that house for a long time and your mortgage was low or your rents were lower, it's a major problem. And, with Northport, at this point being, I think, more of a bedroom community to other areas where the work is in Sarasota, and I know that's changing, I don't think the home values in Northport are as low as they used to be. It's not the affordable place anymore. And it's a little discouraging. I think some people are starting to use the term attainable housing because they're giving up on the idea that affordable even exists anymore. So it's something that needs to be addressed. And then if you start doing the multifamily homes, which is fine, rents are still high, but you have to have the infrastructure to support it.
Yes.
The traffic on the interstates, broadband. A lot of people are starting to expand inland, and the broadband is an issue out there. So until that infrastructure gets improved, there's going to be a challenge. But manufacturing is moving inland, and it is moving into areas like Northport, which is great for its residents.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I remember even not too long after the hurricane, you drive down Commerce and in our sort of our industrial area, and we have some great manufacturers here already, like Eurowall, King's Plastic, and they're economic engines in our community.
They are, and we really saw that during the pandemic. When you start talking about tourism and hospitality, those things shut down, and manufacturing was thriving during the pandemic. Okay. There was that one initial month where if you weren't essential, you had to be closed. But right after that, the manufacturers were hiring the people that were getting laid off or just couldn't work because of the pandemic. Wow. And it really was the industry that held the economy together, especially early on during COVID. And that's something from the advocacy standpoint that we really tout, especially at the state level. When we go up to Tallahassee, that is not what they think about. Florida is not known as a manufacturing state, and it needs to be.
Yeah.
More manufacturers are coming here. And it's just a matter of getting the financial support in various areas to continue growing the industry as a whole.
Yeah. You mentioned Tallahassee, and we just got through another election season. What's sort of top of mind for manufacturers and for your when you go to Tallahassee with legislative priorities? What are some of the things that you're focused on?
So the legislative priorities that we focus on are a little selfish. You mentioned you spoke with Dave Ferguson earlier. He is the business advisor for both SAMA and CIRMA. I'm the executive director. So put all that together, we're two people that are trying to serve 2,000 manufacturers. The numbers don't add up. So how do we get more boots on the ground from a regional standpoint? We need some state dollars.
Yeah.
And up until this point, we don't get it. So we need more business advisors. We need more administrative help. And we just need to have that exponential growth in helping the manufacturers. Beyond that, the
resiliency that you see with the manufacturing industry, especially when you talk about how they stood tall and actually did well through the pandemic, that they're still up and running for the most part, following something like a Category 5 hurricane. They seem to stand as a pillar and economic driver for any region. So relaying that importance to the officials that are handing out funding and focusing energies, it seems for every dollar spent on manufacturing, it produces $2?
I think it's closer to $4. And you're right, and it's exponential because the manufacturers will buy things from other state or regional vendors. So it really does drive the economy. I think part of the issue is that there's a stigma about handouts, right?
Yeah.
So no matter if you're the city of Northport economic development or if you're talking about at the state level, and we're trying to encourage manufacturers from other states to come here, they don't want to give out anything. So I think what we need to work on as a legislative priority are more tie-ins to jobs.
Yeah.
You have to have some economic stimulus. Right now we have the CHIPS Act, so we're trying to get semiconductors manufactured in the United States. Florida wants to be a part of that, but you really have to throw some money at it because it's an expensive transition if you're going to take a manufacturer, whether they're coming into the state, starting from scratch, or transitioning from what they currently do into building those semiconductors. It takes money. So it's not a handout that we want, it's incentives. So if you do this, give us the money, but we will create more jobs.
Absolutely.
And they have to live up to that.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then they don't get the money.
Yeah.
And we've seen it work in Sarasota County before.
Oh yeah. That all sounds so good. Semiconductors, it's the wave of the future. They go in everything.
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 And it really is a national security issue.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about what's happening with China and Taiwan is the primary producer of these semiconductors.
Bring it into the States.
What happens if?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
We have got to get everything back onshore as much as possible. We tout that with our manufacturers when they are purchasing components that they need. We are doing our best to get them to buy stateside, but definitely even in the state of Florida. Dave Ferguson may have touched on this earlier. We have a supply chain database in the state called Connex. It's a great way for manufacturers to connect with one another, to do business with one another. And then at the regional manufacturing association level, we have network communities where we encourage our members to connect with each other. And it's an open forum platform.
That connectivity is key.
It's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
And it worked very well with Ian too. We had a lot of manufacturers around the state raising their hand, asking how they can help the manufacturers in need that were affected by Ian. This is a way. Obviously, we need an internet connectivity to come back first, but it's a very easy way for somebody to raise their hand and say, hey, I can offer you this. And the person on the other end can say, hey, I need that. And vice versa. You can raise your hand and ask the question. Who can help me make this while my facility is at 50% capacity?
That's great.
So it's great. I love what we do. We're seeing the results.
I can hear the passion when you talk about what it is that you do. It's there, and it's inspiring.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it is. I really enjoy this. As you mentioned, I have over 25 years experience in manufacturing, and I'm still in manufacturing. I'm just not running a manufacturing facility. So it's different, but it's equally as rewarding, if not more so, especially when you start getting into the educational side of things. I like that when I see the CTE instructors and the students' eyes light up like, I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, it's rewarding.
And that's what we have to get out there.
Yeah. Well, Rob, it's been wonderful having you on.
Well, thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
having me.
much.
I appreciate the invitation.
Take care.